Good evening once again, and welcome to another edition of Caribbean Feedback. My name is Curtis Henry. I am your host, and how you all call me? Moderator for this evening's show.
Yes.
Moderator.
That's right.
Moderator. I can't speak too fast, moderator.
Yeah, because it's singing like mother something. So don't say it's
moderator for another edition of Caribbean Feedback. Caribbean Feedback is that type of backyard conversation.
That's right.
Together and talk about issues that affect us as a people, issues that affect us as a family, whether at home or abroad.
That's right.
Sitting in with us this evening, we have a slim panel. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to drive this message home. Whether you all believe in this COVID situation or not, I'm telling you it's real. It's real, it's real, it's real. It has impacted us close to home. And we still have a couple people that are down, a couple people that are absent this evening who are in recovery from this COVID situation. So please, I urge you all to do what the people say. And when they say social distancing, which in itself is an oxymoron to me, in order to be social, you have to get together. And you could social at a distance. Yeah, they say social distancing. That's what they say, practice it. They say wear a mask, put on the mask, so at least all they could get in the store, get all the thing and go home. So be careful. That's what I'm trying to say at the end of the day.
They argue in front of the shop. They're arguing.
I don't know. Just do what the people say. Let me get this thing behind us like 2020, like the past administration. Get this thing behind us. So do what the people say so that we could move on beyond this thing.
That's
all
right. That's right.
So, as usual, I'd like to begin with Ms. Forrester. Could you please introduce yourself, tell the people who you are and what it is you do?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Karin Forrester. I represent Bantu Creations. Bantu Creations offers beautifully made, African-inspired, lightweight, handcrafted, one-of-a-kind earrings in beautiful shapes, shades, colors, and sizes. Bantu Creations can be found on IG and on Facebook as Bantu Creations with a K. Back to you, Mr. Henry.
Thank you so much, Ms. Forrester. And we have a guest sitting in with us this evening. You look familiar. Do I know you?
She looks familiar?
Yeah. Miss Karin Lesieur.
All right.
Welcome to Caribbean Feedback, my dear.
That's right.
Thank you.
Why do you look so familiar?
I am familiar, very familiar to you, Monsieur Curtis Henry. My name is Karin Lesieur. I am the owner and founder of Agape Spa and Wellness in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I am the sister of Curtis Henry, our moderator.
That's my baby sister.
She's the
so
baby
I'm
sister.
really happy to be on tonight as a guest. And I'm looking forward to this chat. Thank you for having me on. Back to you, Curtis.
Tell us where Agape Spa and Wellness can be found.
Can be found on Facebook at Agape Spa and Wellness and IG. Same Agape Spa and Wellness. Agape_Spa and Wellness.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for joining us. Mr. Archer.
Yes, sir. Yes. So, good night, everyone. How you all are doing? I hope everything is good. Just heard some news from Tobago. They had an election going on in the island of Tobago for Tobago House of Assembly. And I understand that it's a tie with the seats tonight in the election. Go Tobago. All right, but other than that, I'm Sam Archer from Musilog.com. We hail where music, entertainment, and culture lives. I am a recent author of the book Hybrid Executive. And if you haven't had your copy yet, time to get your copy because it's a timely book. And this is my favorite part of the show. Those of you who have been checking out the show forever and ever, it is episode. Are you guys ready? You guys ready? You guys ready? 10.
20.
5.
Episode number 28. It seemed like only yesterday. It seemed like only yesterday we started. Once again, it shows what consistency can do. You just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep on moving in the direction of the light. And keep your eye on the prize and looking forward to episode 128. So
that's right. That's right. We're going to keep it moving.
On behalf of our regular panelists, Judith Barnes, I sending a shout out to you this evening. I urge you to rest up, drink your medicine, drink your bush medicine, do what it takes, get better, and come on back on the forum and bring us your love and your good vibes.
Put a little white rum in it.
And for Mr. Mark Chase. Well, he gonna do whatever he wants to do anyway. He ain't gonna listen to me. Yeah, get better, brother. Get better. Just get better. Yes. All right, do whatever you had to do. Get better. Get better and come on back. All right.
Positive energy. Positive energy.
So my name is Curtis Henry. I am here on behalf of Caribbean Chat. Caribbean Chat provides a platform where we celebrate the history and culture of Caribbean people in entertainment, the arts, politics, sports, education, and economics. We explore the many profound contributions that they have made to society. So look us up on YouTube at Caribbean Chat. That's CHATT, chat with 2 T's. Or you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also subscribe to Caribbean Feedback. Leave us comments. Let us know what you think about the show. Let us know what you think about our panelists. Let us know what you feel about a particular topic. Let us know what ideas you have that you would like to hear discussed. And keep the lines of communication open. All right. This evening, we're here to discuss how we call the show?
Becoming Your Parents.
Becoming your parents. Wow.
Scary. Some good and some bad. Come on now. Let's keep
Let me tell you something. All through my childhood years, I was told how much I looked like my father. But it was never in a loving or endearing way. It was always, boy, get from in front of me with them 2 big eyes. You look like your father. Or you just like your father. It was always in a sort of oppressive kind of way. I heard nothing but horror stories about his philandering ways and subsequent neglect of his offspring. It was only upon his death that I met 2 uncles I never knew existed. And they were able to fill me in on an approximate number of siblings that they remembered.
What's the last time?
I have no pleasant memories of playing any kind of sports with my father or doing anything fun together. So I made sure that my children knew me, who I was, and who I am as a person, not just as a father.
Right, that's right.
Because I didn't want to repeat some of those mistakes that he made and become my father. That was one generation. I didn't want to pass that on. So I had a lot of unlearning, a lot of learning to do, not to become. And trust me, if you ask some people right now, they're going to say, boy, you're just like your father. So what could we do? Is it all in the DNA? Could we fight what is inevitable? Talk to me, people. I don't know.
It's the curse of the Bambino.
I don't think that everything is fixed. I think a lot has to do with how you're nurtured. It has to do with what you do along the way to help yourself educate yourself more. And the relationships that you build with friends and other people that you embrace along the way teach you a lot about who to become as an adult. I don't think it's all fixed just because of who gave you half of your DNA. I don't believe in that.
Well, it's something to be said about having their DNA for sure. Because I mean, I concur with some of the things that Curtis is saying. Like when I was growing up, people used to say, even my mother, she used to say that all the time. I was not much of a talker, and she would go on, and it's as if she was talking to a wall. And she would be like, "Oh my God, you're just like your father, and you're this and you're that." And I would hear that all the time. But most of the time when she said that, it wasn't a negative,
Mm,
but it was something negative. And I kind of concur with you too, Karen, because with us, we have our DNA definitely is made up of both parents, right? And then we have our own. So I mean, environments,
mhm.
um, genetics, and experiences make us who we are, for sure. So
Absolutely.
definitely, you can go the other way. There's always that choice to be made.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you get 23 chromosomes from
23
each
Hmm.
parents. Yeah.
parent, and that helps to, because each parent is offering a half life, it comes together and it's you. And so it's definitely a DNA thing going on. The question is, have we tapped into understanding the fullness of this whole DNA thing? I don't think we have. There's a
It's
lot.
ever evolving.
There's a lot for us to uncover and to discover about it. Um, I heard it, but it was always, there was like a joke not too far behind it.
Really?
Do this joke lingering behind, like so.
You care to share the joke?
Uh,
So,
You
you know,
never let that one down.
all three of you have heard commentary over the years in your childhood about that other half, whether that person was present or not. I heard nada, nothing. You know
uh,
what I mean? So I'm coming from a different perspective altogether. I would have preferred hearing something. Maybe I could have learned a little bit about who he was as a person. I heard nothing from my mom, and she was the only parent I knew. So, it depends on your perspective on things. You know what I mean?
So
when it
say
when it
you
comes to
actually
my
say,
mother.
Karen, that
Oh, sorry.
I'm
you
sorry.
actually say you prefer to know
Yes, I do.
regardless of the situation.
I'm a very practical person and I can deal with a great many things if I know what I have to deal with. I don't like the secrets and the lies and the cover ups. I'm not that type of person. I don't cover up things. I'd rather know and then I can deal with it rather than not know. Truly, truly, hand to God. Hmm.
I was going to say, when it came to on my mother, if it, I will hear that, wow, my God, what a print, so that was sort of like said in the endearment type of a spirit, or in a context. So it's interesting, when folks related to your dad, what, how it went, and then if they related to your mom, how, you had that sort of a, yin and yang type of of a expression when coming to either, you know. So it's and the more you pray that you didn't want to turn out like one parent, is the more you realize that you're just like them in everything,
I think
everything.
I think it's either you go towards some of their features or you go in the complete opposite direction. Depends on how you viewed it as a child to young adulthood. Because if you were repulsed by
You
certain
say features
behaviors,
or you say feature? Trait, okay.
features in their
Yeah,
character.
characteristics. I mean,
Yeah,
you
their
can have
characteristics, features
characteristics.
in their
Yes,
characteristics.
yes.
if you were repulsed as a child or a young adult, say late adolescence, then you may have gone in the complete opposite direction from what you saw. If you had someone who drank a lot and became volatile, wanted to fight or argued a lot, maybe you just didn't touch the stuff. Or if that's what you learned as a stress response, and you had to deal with a lot of stress, you mirror what you have learned, and maybe you start drinking. So people make choices, as they enter adulthood. Do I want to do what he or she did, or do I want to just do a 180 and just do something totally different in hopes of getting a different result? I know I did both.
In terms of that alcoholism thing, that's something I heard horror stories on one side of the family. On my mother's side of the family, I heard horror stories about my grandfather. And I think I echoed this on the show before about him drinking away all the property that supposed was to be passed on to his children and subsequently to the grandchildren. And he drank it all away. So I made certain that I stay away from the bottle. That's one thing I didn't want to do, to be in some kind of drunken stupor to the point where you don't even know, vomiting on yourself and anybody doing anything to you and you don't know how you got from one point to the other, waking up in some... No, that was something I never liked as a child. I used to see it on Carnival Day. Carnival Day, people are decided the road, they're drunk. You come out to have fun. How is it you outside to have fun and you lay down on the pavement sleeping?
Where's
the fun in that? Where's the fun in that?
All of that is part of having fun. It's the atmosphere of revelry, the atmosphere of having a good time. It's right. That atmosphere that brings about that. But at the same time, I feel the same way because I remember just 2 days ago I was talking about actually. I remember I got drunk one time in my life, and
you remember?
I was with two of my brothers, my mother's sons. I was with two of my brothers. I went to visit a friend's house at Christmas. And while I was there, we started drinking. I was 15 and we drank different things. And I didn't even realize, I didn't know actually that you could become intoxicated drinking different drinks, right? I got drunk, got home, got in a fight with my sister, never remember that, felt so terrible next morning, was throwing up and everything, missed the door and walked into the wall, had an flat out crazy hangover. And my brothers told me that they brought me home. The thing is, I couldn't remember that. And years later, when I studied addictions, I come to understand that people have black days when they under that influence, right? And I decided since back then I would never be drunk again. And I never was, because the whole idea that I could not know or remember where I was and what transpired in my life, that's a no-no. So it never happened again.
Absolutely.
That was a conscious decision, and if more people make that decision, when I was studying addictions, I had arguments with the doctors when they would talk to me about people having this in their DNA. And that's how it is that people gravitate to becoming addicts, that it's in their DNA. So it's part DNA and part environment.
Familial. Mm-hmm.
So if it's in your DNA, it means that you have no choice.
So you learn that lesson the first time around, you learn that lesson. Absolutely. Okay. So you're not even an occasional drinker, let's say.
I am, but you got to know when you had enough, right? You must know when you had enough.
Okay.
Everything in moderation for me. So you could get a nice little buzz, like you'd say, or something, or you drink, or you have a glass of wine or something, and you've had enough. I don't like the drunk idea.
No, I drink every time I go out. Every time I go out, I drink. I drink juice. I drink water. I drink...
They're shouting now.
The only kind of beer I drink is ginger beer. That's it. That's as strong as I go.
It is drink.
Ginger beer. That's it.
He had to put his glasses on for that one.
I refuse. Yeah, you put your glasses on. You know what I say.
I can see clearly now.
You guys.
But that alcoholism part that was passed down from that side of the family. That's something, you know, I sidestep that. Miss me with that crap. I refuse to take that on myself and let my children. Now I know the bigger ones, they drink and do their own thing. They are adults. So it's up to them to make their own choices. But one thing they cannot say is that they learned it from me. Mm. They did not get any alcohol consumption from me.
So it's not a behavior that they have to unlearn.
Well, yeah, they had to unlearn it. They learned it somewhere. But they can't blame me and say, well, my father used to.
It might be some influence. But they get, you know, but the other thing too is whether the person, I remember one of our episodes, I made a reference to that the family, or the family line is like a chain.
Lineage.
That one link, that's pretty much the one that's
holding everything
in charge. That's just your era of time that you're in charge of stuff for the family, or you're like the matriarch of your timeline. And you can either that person is the person of a point of focus, and everything they do, you can either learn and it affects you in a good way, or it will show you things that you want to avoid. Because now this is a part of you that came before that's dealing with certain things. They're either dealing with some form of secrecy, or there's some outside influence, or the environment that they're dealing with now. So they evolved under that circumstance. And now you're the younger one looking up at this person. Now you're seeing what they're dealing with. And until you get you're that chain or that link of focus at that point, now you're making the choices so that your kids could, you know, like in terms of the drinking, they can't say, well, I got it from looking this way. It would be more of an influence thing, or maybe their peers, you know, they went out somewhere and they have some friends, and you know, so friends will, you know, will do things what friends will do. But the traits that you would probably see in that parent, mother or father, and you're like, I don't like that part, or there's this thing, you know, and you try as much as possible to avoid, you know, certain types of behaviors. So in a sense, you're looking at yourself, you know, because this is part of your lineage. This is part of your bloodline. And, you know, you have all the different personalities coming through there, all the different chemical things going on, all the different DNA things going on. And, you know, you have to relate at that point, you know. So I am the chain of focus in my bloodline for my kids, especially for my kids now. They're looking at me. I have to represent with maturity and let them understand responsibility to the best of my ability. Am I perfect? No, there might be some things that they probably don't like. You know, maybe I laugh too much. I don't like when he laughs too much. His jokes are always dry. I'm not sure. You know, I don't know what they're gravitating to, but it definitely can be drinking or
illicit drug use,
or illicit drug use or something of that nature. That will definitely not come from looking at and I didn't have any. None of my parents really had that issue in terms of drinking and stuff like that. But there was still one and two things that you know, there were some things I liked and there were some things, you know, I didn't like. you know. And thinking back, we grew up in the 70s. It was more of a military style of where families were grew. It was military, so it was disciplinary things were different then. It had a more military type, slavery type of a thing. So now you're dealing with that, and they're trying to discipline you and correct you, but that's what they knew at that time. That's just how it was, right? I just knew that, okay, my kids ain't gonna be dealing with this. It's gonna be a different type of a stroke, different strokes, right?
We did discuss some of this on, what was it, corporal punishment.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We discussed these habits or traits that our parents and grandparents that was passed down from slavery, and which they executed on us. And foolishly enough, I picked up some of that stuff and started treating my own children the same way until, nah, boss, I had to look at myself, take a long look in the mirror. No, it wasn't even the mirror. I look in my son's eyes and I realize it's like, no, because he was looking at me in a state of confusion, like, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? And right then and there, I decide I can't become this. This was known for my grandmother. I cannot become my grandmother in that aspect of beating my children senseless. I said, no, man, that has to stop.
That was one look at the time. You go ahead, Kathy.
I said, and in some cases there's abuse because there's a fine line that I don't think a lot of them knew or understood. That when they're mad about something that their children have done, that they should take a minute to process what happened and to think about what they're gonna do next. I think that
in the 70s and the 60s,
there was no thing in our culture.
A lot of what happened is borderline abuse, like.
They did not process in the culture I'm from. They did not process. They reached for something. They did not process.
And I just I did the opposite to that. Whenever my children did something that they displeased me or that was wrong, and it's time for correction, I made sure the correction was not. It didn't necessarily have to be punishment, and punishment didn't mean that you're going to be beaten, that kind of thing. It was me processing what they did, and I sat down and calmed myself down because I saw the opposite of that. And I just decided that is not something that I was going to do. And I never did it. Even verbally, saying things that you couldn't take back, because sometimes words hurt more, the things that you would have heard and stuff like that would have hurt so much more. So I just took a different approach. I just went the opposite direction.
But here now, hold on, wait. Everybody here sitting down talking about the things that we didn't do. Let me hear some of the things we want to pick up. Because sometimes when you look at yourself in the mirror and you listen to some of the words that come out your mouth, or some of the things you do in the kitchen, you realize, wait a minute, is this me?
I'll chime in.
Go ahead.
I'll chime in on that. Couple of things as far as things that I repeated or looked at. My mom was generous to a fault. If someone needed something, monetarily or otherwise, someone needed something and she had it to give, she did not hesitate. Even if the person turned out to be ingenuine, she did not regret those types of things. Another thing I learned from her that I had to try to unlearn, and every once in a while it still pops up in my life, suppressing pain with food, that stress eating response. I learned that, definitely learned that from her. Living in the moment and not saving for the future, I don't think that's something that she planned to teach me, but that's something I definitely got from mommy. And when she poured over bills, like say things were a little difficult, 1 month or 2 months, and she looked over her bills, and she couldn't figure out how to balance things out properly. She used to actually develop what I call psychosomatic pain, actual pain from the stress of the situation, get headaches from the stress of the situation. On the positive end, mommy loved me unconditionally, and so I'm able to do the same for somebody else. As far as the relationships where aren't healthy, if I find that somebody's not healthy for me, or I find I've assessed it and the person is toxic, I get rid of them quick, fast, and in a hurry. And I don't think she had those skills. So I went in the opposite direction.
Blocked and blessed? What do you call it?
Blocked and blessed. Blocked and blessed. Blocked and blessed. Yeah. And another part of the anybody chime in on this? I'm not trying to capitalize on the time here, but part of the changes, dramatic changes I made starting, I heard Kathy mention age 15. I think when we start to get into those middle teen years, entering young adulthood, we assess our family, all our relationships, and make decisions. I decided I was going to I used to have organ meats, beef tongue, in the refrigerator every single week. There was a fresh beef tongue from the deli. And at 15, 14, late 14, 15, almost 15, I just said, you know what? That's it for me. I just have had it. I'm not eating any more organ meats. I'm serious. Organs, it used to be more than the tongue, but it would be like kidneys from the chicken or beef liver, things like that. Organs are used by the animal to get rid of waste. And so they take out the organ that gets rid of the waste, and I'm eating it, putting the waste in my body. I just was like, I'm done. And around age 15, I gave up organ meats. And after that, I gave up red meat, pork, and then processed it for even further. But the dietary changes was phenomenal for me because I had to make the changes because I saw the health status of my mom go from seemingly healthy to all types of issues, diabetes, which is a systemic disease that led to kidney disease, kidney failure, dialysis. So I saw a whole series of negative changes as a result of dietary choices that she made. So I decided to take a different path. That's it.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Similarly for me, my mother had a heart attack.
Okay.
I think around at age 37 or 38.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And in the subsequent days, she had 5 consecutive attacks to the point that she had to have a pacemaker.
Oh, wow.
And this go back to 1976, 77, somewhere there. And even at that young age, I knew some of the contributing factors that, caused these things. And my grandmother never raised us on those stuff that you talk about, the organs and stuff like that. So I started that practice at a very early age, at 14. when I cut out the meat and the pork and all of that stuff from very early. And that was another one of the traits I didn't want to take on.
To pass
becoming my parents in that manner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I always eat healthy. Always try to eat healthy and take care of my this one temple that we have. Because no matter how advanced we get in science, I haven't seen any indication where they could transfer the soul from one vessel into another. So this is it. This is it. So we have to take care of this body that we have and stop. I mentioned this over and over. Stop eating the slave food because it's some sort of tradition. Oh well, my grandparents been doing this and no, nonsense. This book, a very interesting story about a girl looking at her mother cook one day, and she noticed that when the mother put the fish in the pot, she would chop off the tail and put it in there. And she asked the mother, well, why do we chop off the tail? And she said, what? She said, that's the way my mother did it. She said, yeah, but why, mommy? Why do we chop off the tail? That's the way my mother did it. So could you ask grandma why you chop off the tail? It so happened that the grandma was still around. So they called grandma and asked grandma, why did you chop off the tail? She said, that's the way my mother did it. It so happened the great grandmother was still around. So they called the great grandmother who was in the next room and said, why did you chop off the tail of the fish every time you cook it? She said, oh, back in the day, we had a very small pot. So we always had to chop the tail off in order for the fish to fit inside the pot. And right. Here we are 3 generations down. You chopping off the tail of the fish. Buy a bigger pot. Buy a bigger frying pan and cook the whole fish. But we practice this.
Yes.
That's a clear example of just doing things without understanding why.
Or asking.
Yes.
Because there was another similar story with there was a garden in somewhere in England or in the British kingdom. There was some garden that a king or a prince gave to a prince or duchess or something. There was some gift, and it was a park, and because it was this gift, they used to have a guard go there and guard the park at that time. And all through the ages, the people dead and gone, they kept sending a guard to guard this place, this garden for hundreds of years. They sent the guard to guard until one person was like, why we sending a soldier here to guard this garden? And they had to go back far enough and realize, oh, well, it was a gift given. And of course, they made new adjustments and because it didn't make sense sending this person there. So the whole purpose of the soldier going to guard this thing, it was gone already. And it's still, we're still there. So good point. I do have, in reference to my parents, I think I have more in the list of admirables and less in the list of undesirable. But one of the things that affected me a little bit was and of course I'm older now, so I understand what they were dealing with. I had parents that were industrial. They were builders and creators, and they had ideas and things that they were, working towards putting together. And unfortunately, they spent a lifetime trying to do this. And they're not here anymore, right? But me seeing what they were building, what they were trying to do, I understand the sacrifice. But in terms of the time you would want a parent to interact with you, I missed a lot of that time. Growing up, you want that time. You see other families spending that time together and traveling and doing fun things and I really felt that was something that I would like to do. But if my parents are always building, there's really no schedule to say, well, all right, Sammy has football game today, or he has a play tonight, so we're going to go to the play. Or it was just a thing that 9 times out of 10 they can't attend because they were busy building.
But Sam, in retrospect, do you realize now, or do you think now, in the way that they were trying to build a legacy for you and your other family members? Do you realize that now?
But
Do
yeah,
you see that? Do you see it that way?
As a child,
No,
yeah.
I know. I said in retrospect. Do you see it that way
Yeah,
now?
I see it now.
Perfect. Perfect.
The other thing I'm doing is, instead of making it such a cut and dry thing where, all right, it's either this or, nothing at all, I try to find the means and ways where, okay, you know what, this needs to be done, but this over here is important and it needs to be done too. Or, I need to spend time with my daughters on this. Or, one of them have an event and there's no even question, I got to go to this. So I find a way to make it work. And I think today we could do that. There was a time before, it just was either or. You didn't really have much wiggle room with how you were, and then I think I have to respect it so much more because when you're dealing with things like white supremacy that is embedded into a lot of how we relate and a lot of the business practices and a lot of the law and all these different things, they were really going against the grain. So I even had to add another 20 pounds of respect on it because there was a lot of sacrifice involved. So even though as a kid growing up, you felt like you needed certain things that they couldn't really give at the time, then, now I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm going to just pass it on and give it to the next set so they can have it because it's important to have. It's something that's important. And maybe they say God don't give you more than you can bear. Maybe I was built for this moment. But, I could understand it and still pass it on to my daughters. So, that's my part of my piece until I jump into the other piece.
No, I agree with what you just said. I agree with that.
Here's one of the funny situations with me, though, in as far as my view of my father. I've read a piece of a poem that I wrote previously on the show, and I no longer perform that piece called Conversations with My Father. I no longer perform it in poetry spots and whatnot because my opinion of him has changed quite considerably. Going into adulthood and encountering some of life's lessons, understanding how treacherous we as human beings can become, how treacherous some mates, women can be. We all view our mothers and sometimes father as perfect beings. And we hear horror stories about one parent or whatever, and we say, well, oh yeah, he bad or she bad. And we never hear the other side of the story. Sometimes it's said that there are three parts to a story: your version, and the truth.
And the truth.
That's right.
And
That's right.
Always hearing one side of the story, that he was this, he was that. Yeah, he did a lot of things to support that theory, yeah, which made me view him in that light. But after certain experiences in my own life, I realized, like, no way. And I started putting two and two together, and I said, I put two and two together, and I came up with 22. A lot of things didn't make sense, and a lot of things started to make sense, and I realized, like, yeah, the man was bad. Yeah, all right, he was bad in his own right, but a lot of the things that he did, he was inveigled. You understand? Sometimes you get pushed to a limit, and you make choices. You make choices based on your sanity at that moment in time. It mightn't be a right choice. It might affect people. It might affect other people. It might affect the children. But sometimes you're forced to make choices for your own sanity and your own freedom, staying out of jail, so to speak. And after being confronted with some of these situations, I had to look back and say, you know what? Now I understand why he did such and such. Now I understand why he did such and such. Because you only heard the stories along the years. You know? And growing up, I had one picture that I saw of my father. And this is in his... Now, he was several years older than my mother. She was about 24 at the time. He was somewhere approaching 40. So all I saw him as an adult, even after when I was born, I saw this grown man. It was never a young guy that I grew up playing with. And he was a full-grown man, dressed with a shirt tucked in the pants and, you know, a man. And oftentimes I would look at him and I never saw myself in him. When they say, you look just like your father, I would look at him when I see him and I don't see it. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago I actually saw a picture of my father when he was young. And literally fell in love with the man. Because I can see every one of my children in him. Every one of them. I can see myself in him. And I look at that picture and I say, yeah, that's my daddy. A word that I've never used for my entire life. That's my dad. Because Kathy can tell you. Kathy can tell you.
The feeling of daddy, Curtis. I mean, like, how did that come about? Because, like, I never had that moment, right? I mean, when I was growing up, I knew that he wrote to me all the time. And he was always concerned about how I was doing in school, how I was doing socially. And I'd write back to him, and but I never was able to put a face to these words. It was always like grasping and feeling around in the dark, because as a child, and because there was no intimate conversations with my mother, I couldn't ask my mom, like, what did he look like? Because she'd often say that she didn't even know when was his birthday, and so forth. So she didn't often speak negative of him, but if I did something that she remembered as negative, then she'd say that, you know, like I was secretive or something. But I don't remember. I remember thinking of him as my father. I think when I was younger, 1 or 2 times, depending on the content of the letter, I thought, yeah, that's my dad, you know, heard his voice. I remember the first time I met him and how nostalgic that was, and how, you know, how I felt, everything, how much love I saw in his eyes, but I didn't feel that when he hugged me. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you. You need to send that to me, brother. You need to send that to me. So I just know that I wanted him. I needed him. And I never really expressed that to anyone. I felt really how should I express that? I felt really drawn to Curtis as my brother, as if he was a replica of my dad. Because I met Curtis, I think I was probably 9, right, Curtis? I think I was probably 9 the first time I met you, and I just felt an affinity, like a you know, bonded. I bonded with him because for me that was a representation of my father. I knew my mother's sons, and I knew the relationship that I had with them, but it didn't feel the same until Curtis came into my life. I just felt like I somehow felt so connected to my dad. But for many years, it was just, I couldn't relate to this daddy thing. and I'm a very spiritual person in a sense that I pray a lot and I'm a God-fearing kind of woman. But I come to a place even I couldn't relate. I couldn't even understand father-daughter relationship with God. You know, I don't want to be preachy or anything because I didn't know what it felt like. What does that? How do I make those connections? How do I make that connection? And even when I met my dad, I was 15 years old, and he came and he was talking to me, and he said, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "No, I don't know you. I've never seen you before." And you know, long story short, it was just it so surreal. And I sat with him and sat looking at him and looking at him and everything. And then the few days passed, and I didn't remember what it felt like to hold his hand, and I didn't remember if he had hugged me or not. You know, and you grasping inside psychologically, you keep reaching for something that it feels as if you're chasing it, and it's not. As the closer you get to it, the further away it goes. And then 4 years later, 4 years, let me see, yeah, maybe 5 or 6 years later, he was gone. And I remember sitting down and trying to remember, oh my God, going into my memory and trying to remember that face so I could hold on to that and not having that, you know. So when I think of my father, there are moments when I think of him as dad, and there are moments when there's a part of me that keeps looking for that, searching for when I felt that, and not being able. It's elusive, not being able to connect in that way. And so when I met my uncles, I think those two uncles may be the ones that Curtis has spoke of earlier, Uncle Joe and Uncle David. Both introductions were so poignant and needed, you know. And when I met Uncle David, Joe first, and I remember when I walked up to him, I I was thinking, whoa, my uncle's so short because I'm a tall woman. And and I remember walking towards him and I'm thinking, oh wow. I looked into his face and I hugged him, and I with the thought in mind that I'm hugging my daddy. And he hugged me good. I tell you, he hugged me good. And I remember that even now. But when I met Uncle David, it was such a contrast to that first introduction to that other uncle. When I met Uncle David, it was so emotional because he held my face. He looked into my face and said, "God, you look like your father." And he kissed me. And he kissed me. He kissed both my cheeks and he kissed me on the forehead. And man, I cried. The little girl that yearned for her, the girl that yearned for her father. I cried like a girl. I cried so much. He cried. We both cried. We held each other all the way. And, you know, so I just wanted to, I said all of that to say that, you know, this whole daddy thing is, it's wonderful for the things, the positive things that I got. I mean, because I heard my dad was kind, and I'm a very, very kind. I'm kind to a fault. And my mom says that I am like my father in ways that, like, for example, she'd say that he didn't go anywhere and didn't put himself together. Like he dressed well and he smelled good. She said he would come from the workshop and he was just going for lunch, and he would dress as if he was going to a meeting in a office, in a boardroom. You know, she said you never know, he just left the garage or wherever. He just always presented himself, and I have that. And I just you know, I heard a lot of things about him. He laughed a lot. I didn't stand like him. You know, the older I got, the more bent my my legs got. I got more of a bow leg. And, you know, I saw photos of that. So I don't mean to take up too much of the time. I'm just.
You found resolve.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's ironic you said that, because I am kind of the total opposite to that. And I don't know if it was somewhere I made that connection and disconnected from it, because I've also heard that story about him all my life from my mother.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that story consistently.
Yes.
He was always well groomed. He was look at you, he's well groomed. Or he would always comb his hair. Da, da, da. So I did the opposite. Whatever it's said about him, I did the opposite.
I
So
wonder why.
That has something to do with it right now, where so what? I just came from work. Deal with it. No, I ain't bathing and changing my clothes to go here and go. No, this is my work clothes. You can't deal with it too bad. And I have always had that attitude. And now that you said that, it made me realize that it might have been a disconnect from trying to be like this man that my mother despised. I tried to be the opposite to everything that she said. You look like him, you dislike him, so I tried to do everything opposite. And wow, that's a
Curtis.
great revelation.
Curtis.
Yes.
You said despised. Is that how you truly think she felt?
The way she spoke about him. Yeah, the way she spoke about him, it never in a positive light. Never, ever. Other than what Kathy just said. Oh, he was well groomed. Oh, he was always well dressed. And why can't you be more like him? But then yet still, you speak about him in such contempt. Why would I want to be like anybody that you speak about like that?
Yeah, I can relate. I certainly can see that, because I remember my mom. Mom talked. She said a lot of positive things about Daddy, and so I believed the things that she said about him. Like she said that he was a good artist, and he always was well groomed and he smelled good. She said he was jealous as well. You know, so a few things that she said. You know, you think about those things, but a lot of the times, the positive things that she said, those are the things that I had to go with. You know, and those are the things that I sort of focus on, and so forth, until I heard, you know, the negative things, you know, and that may be a girl loving her dad and thinking that he is, you know, the knight in shining armor, like he's my dad and that kind of thing.
Knight in shining armor.
Yeah, he's but I don't know.
I like what I just experienced in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. This was, this was an interesting, really beautiful.
Well, you're not gonna like what I'm about to say. She had that knight in shining armor image, you know, of someone she met and and I didn't know mine, never saw a picture of him. To this day, I can still say the same thing. So when I was in my mid-teens, I had in my dreams, it was like a phantom in my dreams that could never materialize. So I had to literally kill him off in my dreams so I could move ahead as a young adult.
So normally you will kill off your imaginary friends.
Well, he was not a friend. I never told you he was a friend. I said he was like a phantom.
I know.
And I had to kill him in order to move ahead in a more healthy-minded way. So
you don't feel any urge to do some form of research or?
I did for many years, and as I said, that was a form of disabling thing, mentally disabling me. I could not move forward properly until I put him in a box in my mind, in my heart.
Well,
it is what it is, yeah.
But getting back to Kathy and Curtis, I think I I connect to it because you have to be sitting at this time to see the map, and to see the map and understand the map, meaning that you're looking at your family tree and things on, you know, so some people, you know, you're seeing life move with you together. So you don't really get to see certain things. You know, it's the generation down, or the generation, or two generations down, can look back and see the whole thing, and start saying, okay, auntie was here, uncle was here, grandma was there, this one was there, this is this event, this is that event, that, you know. So when you speak about meeting Brother Joe, and you speak about Uncle David, you got to look at the time between that these guys grew up with your dad. They had that link with him. So now they're probably seeing you for the first time. So it's a whole, you know, so it's a whole spiritual reconnect, something, you know, you maybe you envisioned something, and then what you envisioned was something totally different to what it was in reality. So all these different sensations are hitting you. And I think this is the crux of the show, you know, becoming.
Well, Kathy, ask Sam to tell you his connection.
Okay, no, so I'm all ears then.
With Archer and Earl.
So, okay, so Earl's mom and my dad are siblings.
What?
Yeah. So Earl's mom is a maiden name. She's Archer.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. And and my dad was pretty much he was pretty much the one who paved the way to bring the Archers to the States. He sponsored, did a lot of sponsoring and so on.
And also Glenda.
So he sponsored a lot of people.
Also Glenda.
Yeah. But let me tell you how it was, right? So in Brooklyn on Fenimore Street, it wasn't unusual that someone will knock on the door, pong pong pong, and my dad will come to the door. Hi, how are you? Somebody he's never seen in his life. He didn't get a phone call saying this person is coming, nothing like that. They'll just say, hey, I am, is this Mr. Archer? Yes, I'm Mr. Archer. How may I help you? Well, I'm so-and-so. And then they have to go down a whole Callaloo cousin line, or, you know, well, this one, I related to this one, and da-da-da, and I'm here. They told me to come and see you, and say, all right, well, come inside, bring your little luggage and thing, and come in a little, put me, your little Georgie bundle. And then he had a little room. They say you put you in that room, and then he'll just give you like the basics. All right, well, you need to get a little job so you could get your little spot, and then, you know, and they'll have some paperwork. He'll sign the paperwork so they can apply. They'll get a job in a few days, maybe 2-3 days out. They have some job. You know, jobs here at the time was easy to get. They didn't have all the restrictions that they do now. And so sometimes people had two or three jobs, and they'll come back sometime after for him to sign some final something, and he'll sign that, and that was either their green card or their citizenship or whatever it is they needed to get to keep it moving. And there were like a lot of families that when they check back, and you know, they go back to the person who was their first family member that came to New York. You look at the paper to who signed the paper. Samson Archer signed that paper to get that whole family, that whole generation that's there. He sponsored them, you know, through the process.
And he's the one that sponsored Glenda, our big sister.
No way. Wow.
Small world, right?
and Sam and I met on the street and became friends, and then all these other pieces came together. 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah. And that is appropriate.
Yeah,
oh
that's
my
true.
God.
Sam, in describing him, I must tell you, you embody a lot of those traits that you saw, a lot of the traits that you learned. You are a very kind, very humble, very giving person. So technically, yes, you did become
your parent.
Yeah, you did become that parent. You did become that parent.
Yes, yes, yes.
And as far as Miss Kathy down there, she don't want to admit it. I ain't hear she talk about this yet. But you see that girl, their mother, she have a fiery side to her. And you see that girl there, as quiet as she talk about she don't talk. Yeah, she didn't used to talk. She know why she didn't used to talk. Because sometimes, even as a child, when you conjure up the words inside, you say it's best I keep my mouth shut because I will get in trouble.
Wow.
If I say what I'm really thinking, I will get in trouble. Let me hush my mouth. So that is how she was as a child. Quiet.
Yeah.
Not that she couldn't speak, not that she couldn't say the right things, but as a child, what she was formulating in her mind, she knew it couldn't go past her lips. So she chose to zip it. But then once she was able to speak,
I would say that's a good I would say that's a good description of me. I still do that. I mean, yeah, you're right. You're right, bro.
No, we can't shut her up now.
Look who's talking too.
Listen, if you think, Sam, that I could talk, this girl here beat me when it comes to running her mouth.
Oh, really?
Yes, because she, exactly like her mother, she became a mother, and she doesn't want to admit it. She doesn't want to admit it that she did in fact become her mother.
You keep talking, and you keep talking, and that will ultimately make decide for you. You keep talking. That will decide everything.
But
decision made.
One other thing I want to cover here. One of the things that I made sure that I did was to make sure my children knew each other. Because upon meeting my same Uncle Joe there, that's Earl's father, and I'm telling him, well, for the first time, and this was at my father's funeral when I met him for the first time, and I'm telling him that, there's Gloria, Glenda, my two elder sisters. There's a brother named Steve. He's a Chinese, half Chinese. And there's me and Kathy. I said, there's 5 of us. And he looked at me and started laughing. He said, what? And he had to call the other uncle over, Uncle David. And he said, wait, listen to this fella here. He's saying it's 5 of them. Uncle David just threw his hand up like this and walk away. He was just like, oh God, this boy, he ain't know nothing. Uncle Joe looked at me, he said, boy, your father had about 14 children that I know of.
That's okay. Wow.
This was news to me at that point in time. Because the 4 others that I mentioned, those are the ones that I knew. I met my Chinese brother when I was about, let's say, 5 years, somewhere there. I remember playing with him and looking up at this kid, and I just remember him as being mean. I thought of him as a mean kid. I didn't understand why, because he was looking down at me like this, and the eyes were slanted. They seemed closed all the time, slanted eyes, just looking down at me with a mean expression. And I just thought of him as being mean. And that's the only memory I have of this Chinese brother that I had. And funny enough, as a child, I always said that I want to have a child with an Indian woman. I want to have a child with a black woman. I want to have a child with a white woman. I want to have a child with a Chinese woman. And to have these children of different races, and yet still they all related as brothers and sisters. Where did that come from? I said this as a child, even before I understood what it took to make a child. I was saying this only to find out years later that my father did this. Had children with an Indian woman. He had children with a Chinese woman. He had children with black women. So where did that come from? That goes back to that DNA thing that we speak about. That this was one of my wishes as a child. But then after finding out that he actually did that, I backed up and I was like, no, can't do it. Get that thought out of your head. Because I knew that I had to undo, some of those things. So that's one of the traits that I realized that I could not carry on. And as a parent, one of the things I also stress on is not making promises that you know you can't keep, which is a very dangerous, a very damaging thing to children. And it's something that I saw from my father, saying that he would show up and never did. And I made sure that I undo that I never did this with my children, said that I'm going to stop by or I'm going to buy you this, or making any promises to do something and then not delivering. So that's another way.
Can I interject for a minute so that you can continue with your thought? You know, it's funny that you said that. I don't know if we've had this conversation before, Curtis, but that was one of the things that was in my mind as well. And one of the things that I try to do as well, not promise my children anything. And just absolutely not make promises to people that I know that I wouldn't be able to fulfill as well. So I can relate when you say things like that. You know, some of those same things that you just spewed off, I do the same thing without, thinking about it, or we never talked about that, but I am the same way. I try not to say things that I don't mean. I don't laugh with people if I don't mean it. I do things intentionally. And yeah, so there you go. You are my brother.
You are my sister. And we are products of that same man we call father, whether we like it or not. We just have to learn how to embrace the positive traits and put aside the negative ones and make sure that we do not become him in those aspects. So Sam,
I agree.
Yes, sir.
Take us home. What advice you have to give to parents, wannabe parents, to children out there in terms of embracing the good? It's like sugar cane.
Well,
suck the juice, throw away the stalk.
What?
I feel like sugar cane. You have to know what to digest and what to throw away. Right? When you suck sugar cane, you don't eat the husk, right? You take the juice, you take the good parts out.
Take the meat and leave the bones.
Well, you're going back to that meat eating again. We ain't with that.
Right. So, one of the good things is that I'm celebrating a birthday this week. Thank you. I'm not going to tell you guys what number it is, but it's close to 50. I'm not going to say minus or plus. You guys will figure it out. But on the day of, which is Wednesday, actually, I'll be releasing a song called Quality, and it's so interesting. When we came up with the title of the show, I didn't even put two and two together that the universe is just, God is just doing his or her thing. I mean, So I have this song called Quality, and I wrote it post 9/11, where a disaster happens. And in the song, I don't say 9/11, so it can be any disaster. It could be, you experience a tornado, you experience a tsunami, you experience your house burning down, you experience somebody robbing you, whatever. And you start thinking about your loved ones. You start thinking about the people you care about. So the song I have called Quality, I want to share a sample of it with you guys tonight and the viewing audience, and just enjoy this part as we wind down to the final minutes of the show. You guys ready? I see Karin smiling. I see. Are you guys ready? All right, all right. Let's see if we can get it in here. Okay. All right. So that's really the promo. That's what it looks like. And stay tuned on Wednesday. And you will.
You set me up. I thought that.
Oh, you thought. What you thought?
Hear something? Wait.
You thought you would get? Oh, you wanted to hear a little something?
Wait. Am I the only one that thinks that's what's about to happen?
Make him go on.
Oh,
him go on. Brand new. Him set it up like they're gonna give you a little sample, you know, but the real release is on Wednesday on my birthday, right? But me just give you a little sampler. Then go show a picture. No man, go on.
Hold on.
See, yeah, man, go on. Picture.
Hold on.
I'll wait till Wednesday. Let
me work it out real quick. So Curtis, give a quick
closing.
Give a quick commercial by the time. Give me two.
All right. So in the meantime, Kathy, leave us with your closing remarks on this subject matter here today: becoming
your
or not becoming your parents.
I know for a fact that this was really, really a good sitting. I think we have to get a little bit closer, a little more in depth about becoming our parents. I think I have tried to put off becoming, learned more about them, learn as much as I could so I can do less of the negative things that they had done. But in any event, when you're younger, you look at them in a certain way, and as you grow older and you experience life yourself, you forgive a lot, you overlook a lot, and I feel good that I'm able to forgive a lot, forgive them for the decisions that they've made, because I want to be forgiven, So tonight was good. It was interesting and uplifting, and as a parent myself, don't want to be judged on all of my ears, my errors. So because I, feel that way today, I am at the end of the day thankful for who my daddy, father was, and the memory that I have in my heart in regards to him.
Thank you.
I'm almost there.
Bantu?
My name Bantu, my name Karin. What? I appreciate everything my mom did for me. We've discussed it on previous shows that, as Kathy stated very well, that I understand the choices she made much more so now than I did, when I was in my teens and stuff and quarreling about every little situation. I respect that she kept that momentum to make sure that I got to adulthood and could fend for myself. I really appreciate her always being there for me and always showing me unconditional love. And she's the only one that I've ever felt that from. And because of her, I'm able to love in that manner. And I know her road was very difficult because I look back at it and she had a lot of challenges and she really maneuvered very well, very well. She had some problems and she worked through a lot of that. So I'm highly appreciative of all that my mom did for me, and she's the only parent I've ever known. So that's why when I hear people complain about this and that, of they didn't have enough of this or they didn't have enough of that, I had none on the flip side. It was always just one side. But I'm very, very grateful for all that I've experienced with her. I don't look back with all types of regrets anymore. That's it.
Thank you so much.
You all ready now?
We're gonna let you take it out. I don't have a lot to say. For once, I don't have a lot to say. I am a byproduct of both parents, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some of the things that I shunned away from as far as my father, I realized that I have become. Some of them good, some of them not so good. It depends on who you talk to. That's it. I wish I knew my father better. I wish we had spent time together and gotten to know each other as adults. We didn't. That's gone. I have 7 children. And I have to make the best of that. I have to make the best of that so that when they reflect, they can see some of the reasons why they do things the way they do them, why they are the way they are. The DNA is strong. It's strong. So I can only hope that I improve as time goes along, and I try to outdo myself every day to become a better parent, a better example as a human being, a better example as a man, a better example as a father, so that they will one day do a show like this and speak about me in a positive light, that they are proud of the man that was their father.
All right. So since I set it up already, I will play the clip and then we'll just go directly into our outro. And it's been a beautiful session. It better work this time. The time I spent with you, I wanted to be quality. 'Cause I don't have tomorrow, and until the time I will see. The time I spent with you, I wanted to be quality. Cause I don't wanna lose the thought of your love shining down on me. I was a couple miles away, and I couldn't believe what the radio had to say. At that moment my mind just ran on you. Then I wondered, without your love, what will I do? Oh, baby, the time I spent with you, I wanted to be quality. I wanted to be quality.